Hello everyone, I am Giacomo and welcome to this episode of the series dedicated to STL Tone's AmpHub. Each cabinet of course has its unique qualities in terms of size, materials and especially speakers of course. These factors profoundly influence which frequencies are emphasized or softened, contributing to a warmer, more aggressive or harmonically rich tone. So from my point of view, most of the guitar tone is in the cabinet section. Choosing the right cabinet can make the difference, for example, between a flat sound and one that really stands out in the mix. So in a guitar rig, it's essential to consider the cabinet with the same care you'd give to the other elements of your signal chain. You're very lucky because in AmpHub a lot of work has gone into the cabinet section, and fun fact, a bunch of cabinets were captured by yours truly. So this section offers a wide range of options, making it really comprehensive and allowing for quick tweaking of parameters to nail the sound that we have in mind. Let's start by giving an overview of the graphical interface and quickly going over all the controls. It might be helpful for some. First of all, the cabinet section, that is recallable right here, is divided into two symmetrical parts. These are essentially two fully customizable cabinets that we can use individually or together, blending them via the mixer in the center. This mixer right here, which lets us adjust the balance between the two sides. The alternative to the mix mode, this mode right here, is pan mode. We can click on mix mode and we can access to the pan mode, and in this mode we control the two cabinets with a customizable pan to place them everywhere we want in the stereo field. Beyond these two modes, it's always possible to adjust the volume of each side separately using the fader at the left side and at the right side of the user interface of the cabinet section, allowing for fully independent volume control. In the menus right here, we find a broad selection of cabinets categorized by guitar and bass cabinets, by speaker types of course and cabinet types as you can see, and of course by microphone choice, so we can recall whatever setting we want, whatever microphone, whatever speaker. It's all about our personal choices. There's also another option in the menu that is called disconnected resistive load. So when using external IRs with AmpHub, remember that the amp's impedance response is still set by the cabinet selected within AmpHub. In this case, for example, the impedance is set by the impedance response of the Phoenix HR-Vil cabinet. So the microphone choice of course doesn't impact the impedance, that it's only related to the speaker type, so any meek option works here. If the exact cabinet isn't available in AmpHub, choose one with a similar speaker model and setup. For example, if I'm working on a 2x12 inches English style external IR with Alnico speakers, probably an AC30 cab will be the best option to have an excellent impedance response. So I probably will go here, go into 2x12 speakers and select a Vulture A30 Alnico Blue C or V. But if your IR has its own impedance curve, simply set the AmpHub cabinet to disconnected. This way, to let the IR's built-in settings take control for the most authentic sound. This setting is really crucial if you're using external IRs. So once again, this is really important. If you are using external IRs, we have two options. If the external IRs has the impedance printed in the IR itself, just pick the disconnected option in the cabinet block in AmpHub. If your external IRs doesn't have the impedance printed in the IR, just pick the best cabinet, the most similar cabinet to the one that is represented by your IR. At the bottom we find the section for loading third-party IRs. Just click on Load in this menu and select the IR you want. For example, I can pick one from my personal library, whatever it works. Okay, and once loaded, you can quickly choose other IRs in the same directory from the drop-down menu. Very easy and convenient. Now, let's focus on the most important part of this video, of course, so managing cabinets in AmpHub. So, let's reactivate our cabinet. Maybe we can recall this preset from scratch. Okay, so the speaker graphic with the pointer showing the current microphone position is really hard to miss. Naturally, you can move the microphone in any direction and hear the changes in real time, of course. To give you a quick example, I've set a project in my DAW with some rhythm tracks recorded for the episode 4 of this series. I have linked tracks and inserts to enable double tracking, which we can control from a single plugin. Let's have a listen. As you can hear, these changes have a huge impact on the sound. So moving toward the center of the cone gives a brighter, more defined sound with a strong high-frequency presence, which of course depends on the speaker, the microphone and the cone that we selected. Perfect if you're aiming for clarity and detail in your tone. On the other hand, moving towards the edge of the cone brings out a darker, warmer tone with less high-frequency emphasis and more body. This is great for a fuller, rounder sound without harshness. In summary, shifting the microphone along the X-axis lets you adjust the brightness and presence of the sound, helping you find the perfect spot for your desired tone. My advice, of course, is spend the necessary time in this phase because, in my opinion, the core of the sound is largely hidden here. Each speaker and cabinet, of course, has its unique tone, so there's no one-size-fits-all position that works in every situation, and that's why I suggest you adjusting the mic placement while the rest of the song is playing to really find the right spot for that specific track. Most of the times, the sound that you find playing yourself alone without any backing tracks, it might be sounding really cool. Once again, by playing by yourself, most of the time when you put that sound in a mix context, that sound will not translate so great. It's not true for every case, but most of the times in my experience I noticed that that was the pattern. So my suggestion, once again, do the microphone choice inside the mix for the best results. Now let's talk about the mic distance, which essentially controls how close or far you want your microphone placement. We can access the mic distance from this knob right here, and you can see the graphic interface updating itself. Of course, we can link parameters from left to right side of the cabinet section of AmpHub for the most quick action on both sides. And what's the point of the microphone distance? Moving the microphone farther away, like this, for example, that is the max distance from the cone that we have in AmpHub, this situation reduces the proximity effect, giving a more natural sound and softening the low frequencies, while the highs become a bit less aggressive. But bringing it closer increases the proximity effect, adding more body and warmth, resulting in a more direct and bright sound. So the choice of distance affects both lows and highs, as well as the overall depth of the sound. Most of the time in the modern genres, the proximity effect is something that helps us achieving the sound that we want, and let's hear some examples on the same rhythm as we played before, moving the microphone distance to see what happens. Now let's talk about the mic angle that relates to the axis. So placing it on axis, like this, gives a bright, detailed tone with a natural emphasis on the high frequencies, ideal for those seeking definition, for example. On the other hand, tilting it, like for example to 45 degrees, softens the high frequencies, giving a bit of a warmer, more balanced sound with less aggressiveness. We can summarize this saying that a straight angle gives us probably more brightness and more direct focused sound. Tilting it instead gives us more warmth and smoothness. For example, if you've already found a solid tone that you're really happy with it, with the microphone in an on-axis position, but you want it slightly less bright, try tilting the microphone a bit, like this, for example, to quickly achieve that result. This is a really useful army that we have in our basement to really get the exact tone we are looking for. Of course, we also have high-pass and low-pass filters available, which allow us to trim the frequencies extremes. This is another key tool for placing the guitar sound precisely within our specific mix context. We also have the phase inversion button right here that is useful when mixing, for example, third-party IRs from different vendors, when mixing a third-party IRs with an integrated AmpHub cabinet, or if you're making, for example, some very experimental placement of the microphone. Just remember that if something sounds really too strange, probably you're out of phase with the two sides, so you can flip the phase with this button. Now let's listen how adjusting all these parameters affects the sound. Let's move to the room parameter. So adding a subtle room effect to the guitar sound creates more depth and space, we all know this, bringing a sense of naturalness and air that prevents it from sounding too dry or flat, for example. This added ambience helps the guitar sit better in the mix sometimes, making the sound feel more alive and realistic, as if it were recorded in an actual room. It's especially useful for genres where the guitar needs to be present but not overpowering, like pop, rock or blues, for example. In ambient or indie genres, it can create a broader, more immersive atmosphere that sometimes you can't really hear in the mix, but if you take it out, you'll surely notice it. So it's like an hidden gem inside the AmpHub and inside the topic of mixing guitars that I think it's really useful in a lot of situations. A light room effect also is versatile, ideal for adding like body and presence to the sound without overwhelming other instruments, because adding a room can put the guitar a bit back in the mix without losing its natural tone and equalization. Talking of this aspect, I want to point out that room theater within AmpHub's cabinet block is convolution based, it's not algorithmic. So essentially it's a synthesized IR tail that simulates a short reverb. Unlike traditional convolution reverbs though, it doesn't include early reflection. This means that it remains completely transparent in terms of EQ. So we are not changing the EQ of our tone that we really achieved working in all the AmpHub's block. With this room control, since we do not have early reflections, we are not modifying the EQ, and so the main foundation of the tone. This means that adding the room to your sound is totally safe. Now let's move to the resonance control that emulates the interaction between the power amp and the speaker in tube amplifiers, enhancing the resonant frequencies of the guitar cabinet speaker. This interaction adds a natural dynamic response to the sound, simulating the push and pull effect you'd get with a real tube amp setup. So it gives the tone more depth and warmth, bringing out the natural character of the speaker and making the overall sound feel more lively and authentic. This is a really powerful control that can really enhance your experience in AmpHub. So it enhances that relations of the power amp with the speaker that most of the times is what really engage us when we are in a room with a real amplifier. Just feel free to try it out, I think you'll love this. Lastly, on each side there's a 3-band EQ right here that offers an additional level of sound customization. So the core philosophy behind AmpHub is to provide you with an all-in-one tool that supports your guitar tone from A to Z without requiring other plugins, and I truly think it achieves that. In my case, for example, I often use this equalizer to tame some specific areas, like for example the 2-4K range, which can sometimes add harshness or whatever. With this EQ I can easily dial it back and smooth things out. This is my case, of course, but feel free to use it for whatever scope you want, because it's a 3-band, really transparent equalizer, very useful. Let's take a listen. And that's it for today's episode. I hope you find it helpful. If you have any questions or feedback or comment about the cabinet section of AmpHub, feel free to drop a comment below. And don't forget, of course, to subscribe to the STL Tones YouTube channel for more tips and tricks. I'm Giacomo, and we'll see you in the next video.